King Edward II of England really murdered by having a red-hot poker shoved up his rear end. If you love all things history, then why not follow along? If you know anything about King Edward II of England, then it's probably about how he died. But what if I told you that that story probably isn't true? Edward was born in 1284 and he was the only surviving son of King Edward I and his wife Eleanor of Castile. Edward was very unconventional for a medieval king. Hobbies included things like digging ditches and thatching roofs. Edward also had a very strained relationship with his father, King Edward I, was just all round a terrible father. Difficulties in their relationship partially stemmed from Edward's relationship with a man named Piers Gaveston. Over the years, there has been a lot of speculation about Edward's sexuality. Given the fact that Edward lived 700 years ago, his understanding of sexuality was very different to ours. That Edward had 4 children with his wife Isabella of France. He also had at least one illegitimate child, Adam Fitzroy. Also know that Edward had very close relationships with Hugh Despenser and Piers Gaveston. But over the centuries, people have implied that these relationships were romantic. While these relationships were definitely emotionally intense, I cannot say with 100% certainty that these relationships were romantic. How Piers Gaveston was treated at the wedding feast of Edward II and Isabella of France, I am inclined to believe that there is something going on there. Eventually, Edward's relationships with Piers Gaveston and Hugh Despenser would lead to his downfall. All around, Edward was a terrible king, and he also happened to have a very strong wife. In the 1320s, Edward's marriage to Isabella completely collapses. While in France, Isabella forms an alliance with Roger Mortimer, 1st Earl of March. They do also eventually become lovers. They make the executive decision to invade England, depose Edward, and put Edward III on the throne of England. But as it turns out, their plan is very successful. Even Edward's brothers side with Isabella. Edward's favourite, Hugh Despenser, and his father are both brutally executed. He's imprisoned here at Berkeley Castle. What happens next is a bit of a mystery. Now, it's generally agreed that Edward died on the 21st of September 1327. What we don't know is how he actually died. It is likely that Edward was very badly treated whilst he was imprisoned at Berkeley Castle. It is plausible that he may have died of natural causes, although it is far more likely that he was murdered on the orders of Isabella of France and Roger Mortimer. Rumour that Edward was murdered by having a red-hot poker shoved up his rear end and to spread in 1330. The story was widely picked up by contemporary chroniclers in the 1330s and 1340s, the most prolific account being written by Geoffrey the Baker in the 1340s. Given the fact that a lot of people believed that Edward II had sexual relationships with his male favourites, the story was an extremely useful piece of propaganda to prove that Edward was a bad king. Fortunately for Edward, the story has stuck, and how his great-grandson Richard II was murdered after he was deposed. As far as I'm aware, there were no visible marks on Edward II's body, like King Henry VI, who we know was conked on the head. Guess that he was either smothered or starved to death. If you enjoyed this video, I will see you next time.